Greetings and welcome to Yarnspirations.com. I'm Mary Beth Temple for Hooked for Life, and in this video we're going to take a look at the scale stitch in crochet. Please take a moment before we get going to subscribe to this channel for fresh content weekly in knitting, crochet, and other yarny crafts. Now this stitch is also known in some places as crocodile stitch. I've heard it called petal stitch, and we call it the scale stitch. It's all basically the same thing, and what we're going to do is have overlay sort of 3D stitches that give a scaled look. Now basically you will always have a 2-row repeat the first row of the pattern. Now I'm using the text from the Skein of Thrones crochet snuggle sack pattern, which you can get for free here on yarnspirations.com, and there is the diagram that I'm using from that pattern. But again, once you learn this scale stitch, you can use it wherever a scale stitch is required. So your first row, your alternate rows are going to have 2 double crochets alternating with 1 double crochet. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. It's going to begin and end with a 1 on the first row. And here's why this is important. When you're moving along in your stitching and you're trying to remember what goes where, if it's a double crochet, if it's 2, that's where that scale or petal or whatever you want to call it is going to go. If it's a 1, then that's an anchor stitch. So if there's 1 DC, there's an anchor stitch. I'm going to put a slip in there. If there's 2, that's where the scale goes. So when I'm stitching along, I don't have to guess where the scale goes. I know where the scale goes. The scale goes wherever there are 2 double crochets in the same stitch. So I have done my setup row, and I'm going to turn the work. So my instructions say chain 1, which I just did, skip the first double crochet, and they mean the very first one. Then it says 4 half double crochet back post. So this is the right side of the work facing me. So my back post is on this side. Now, I'm trying to come up with a really articulate way to say this. You're working from the top of the stitch to the bottom of the stitch, and you're working around the post multiple times. So oftentimes if we've learned a back post stitch, we're going through the post like this, and then the stitch is going to stand up. But that's not the case. We're working around the post like we have learned to do. So there's my half double. But I'm going to have the stitches oriented so they're laying out to the side. So that was 1, 2, got to make sure there's room here. I'm using the Burnett blanket because that's what was used in the Skein of Thrones pattern. But again, any yarn, any pattern, same general idea. There's my 4th half double crochet. Then it says back post, double crochet, back post, and then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to come up the other side. So let's do that double. And chain 1. And now we're coming up the other side. So once again, I'm working around the post here, but my stitches are oriented from the side. So there's my double. Now 4 halves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 scale made, slip stitch and next double crochet. Now, even though I'm sort of looking at this side of the work, my row was going this way, right? Because I made back post stitches, so the scale is away from me. So it says slip stitch and next double, that's this guy. I'm going to slip stitch with the scale away from me, and that's going to anchor that scale down so that the top of it is not flapping in the breeze. I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to put a scale around the doubles when there's two together and use that solo, I'm trying not to say single double because that's confusing. That solo double crochet is where the anchor stitch is going to be. So I'm going to just start it one more time, and again we're going back post, so we're working away from us. So 4 halves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, chain 1, and now I'm coming up the other side. Whew, where's my other guy here? Here he is. Double, 4 halves, 1, 2, oops, lost my yarn over there, 2, 3, 4. Right, and then looking over here where my double crochet is by himself, and that's where my slip stitch goes. That's where my anchor goes. All right, let's look at the right side of the work. So there's 1, there's 2. So now moving forward in this stitch pattern, let's take a look at the diagram. You'll also see that they stagger. So you've done your row where you have your doubles and then you put your scales. And then your next row, the third row, you're going to put your doubles. And then the fourth row, you're going to put your scales. And then the fifth row, you're going to put your doubles. In the sixth row, you're going to put your scales. And they're going to move back and forth. All right, so you're going to just follow along with the instruction. But the one thing that most people have a problem doing is figuring out where to orient that hook. And we have just figured it all out. So whether you're making the Skein of Thrones or another project with the scale stitch, now you know where you're going. So thank you so much for joining us here on Yarnspirations.com. I'm Mary Beth Temple from Hooked for Life. Don't forget to like and subscribe these videos, and we'll see you again here real soon.